Welcome to the Get Fit Guys quick and dirty tips to slim down and shape up. My name is Ben Greenfield. I'm the Get Fit Guy, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about whether you should dope to get fit. Now, my attention and curiosity was actually piqued about this topic by a recent article written by famed exercise science researcher Samuel Marcora. He wrote an article called "Can Doping Be a Good Thing? Using Psychoactive Drugs to Facilitate Physical Activity Behavior." And in the article, he explored whether adherence to an exercise program or motivation to exercise, or even the intensity at which you exercise, could be facilitated via the use of psychoactive drugs. Yes, you heard right. Psychoactive drugs. In other words, could the use of popular smart drugs like modafinil or heavy dosing with compounds like caffeine make you more likely to stick to an exercise program or develop a healthy exercise habit? Well, as ironic as it may seem, Dr. Marcora does have some interesting thoughts on this, and so do I. Before we delve into this latest research from Dr. Marcora, you should know about some previous research that sheds interesting light on this same topic. In this research from a couple years ago, which I first reported on over at bengreenfieldfitness.com, Brazilian sports scientists used a non-invasive form of brain stimulation called transcranial direct current stimulation, or TDCS, to apply a tiny electrical current to the cortex in the brain. Now, this cortex is the primary culprit when it comes to exercise fatigue. The idea was that this stimulation would briefly interrupt the way neurons in the cortex communicate with each other and distract the brain from shutting down the body. Of course, there was also a control group of cyclists that had the electrodes attached but didn't get any stimulation. So, what were the results of this brain tweaking? Well, after 20 minutes of real or fake brain stimulation, the cyclists completed an all-out ride to exhaustion. And sure enough, the cyclists who underwent the electrical stimulation had significantly lower heart rates, lower perceived exertion, and a 4% higher power output, which may sound small, but is actually quite huge for a cyclist. The researchers noted that this increased performance may go above and beyond mere distraction of the brain, but may actually be caused by a mingling of pleasure and pain centers in the brain. This is because the right side of the cortex is strongly linked to feelings of pain and physical exertion, while the left side of the cortex is linked to pleasant feelings and emotions that occur when you see someone smile, or hear your favorite song, or cuddle up with a loved one. Okay, well, as you may have guessed, electroshock stimulation to the brain isn't quite as accessible to most of us as, say, copious amounts of coffee. So let's take a look at this latest article from Dr. Marcora. Now, I should begin by clarifying that his latest article is not a research study per se, but instead it's a thought-provoking article on doping. He begins by inferring that humans are inherently lazy, and that to maximize fitness or adherence to an exercise program, we ideally need to find ways to reduce perception of difficulty, also known as rating of perceived exertion, or RPE. And we also need to find ways to reduce discomfort during exercise without actually reducing the effectiveness or the correct dose of exercise intensity or duration. He then goes on to propose what may seem like a drastic or even unethical exercise intervention, the use of psychoactive drugs to facilitate adherence to or intensity of physical activity. He notes that a psychoactive drug that reduces perception of effort during exercise may be particularly useful for the many people who are overweight, have low exercise motivation, or even exercise, say, after work in a state of mental fatigue. He also introduces the concept of something called self-efficacy, which is highly correlated to physical activity behavior in adults. He says there's a reciprocal relationship between exercise and self-efficacy, meaning that an inactive person who's just beginning an exercise program and then who has low self-efficacy would perceive exercise to be more of a chore than someone with high self-efficacy. So a drug that reduces perception of effort could be quite helpful to get someone adhering to an exercise program. Now, he notes that a safe, cheap, and widely available psychoactive drug that has been proven to reduce perception of effort during exercise is one you're probably familiar with: caffeine. But he also mentioned something called methylphenidate, which is commonly used for treatment of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and also modafinil, a smart drug used by many executives and students to reduce mental fatigue and sleepiness and to enhance cognition. He also mentions that in addition to the use of these stimulants to reduce perception of effort, another strategy to consider would be to use drugs that act on the opioid system, like dopamine or marijuana, to enhance the positive feelings experienced after exercise, often known as runner's high. So, what's my take on doping to enhance exercise performance or motivation? Well, here's the deal. As I discussed in the article, How to Get Motivated to Exercise, and I'll link to that in the show notes, there's an incredible variety of ways to increase your exercise adherence or exercise intensity or exercise motivation, all without the central nervous system and adrenal stimulation of copious amounts of caffeine, or the potentially liver-damaging and sleep-disrupting effects of many smart drugs. Sure, caffeine and pharmaceuticals have their place, but in my opinion, should only be used as a last resort, and I firmly believe that reliance upon doping shouldn't really be necessary to get you excited to exercise or to exercise hard. So some examples that I give in that How to Get Motivated to Exercise article include clipping pictures and posting them around your house, pictures of the body that you want, clipped out of fitness magazines or books, the use of social accountability like Facebook pages or a blog or a Twitter account to tell others about your exercise goals and your workout achievements, or to join clubs that involve people going after the same goals that you have. Similarly, getting a workout buddy can also help. Finding someone to keep you from sleeping through a workout because they're going to be meeting you there at the gym or out on the track at 6 a.m. A personal trainer is another example I give. Making a plan, in other words, simply writing things down and having a program to follow, is another example I give. Keeping a log on your phone or your iPad or your computer is another example. Go read the article, How to Get Motivated to Exercise, for details on all of the examples and many others. But basically, the idea is that I really don't think you need drugs to lose weight or to adhere to an exercise program. In my opinion, doping to get fit is simply not worth the trade-off in most cases. But you may have your own opinion, so I'll tell you what, head over to facebook.com/getfitguy and join the conversation over there. If you have your own opinion on this or your own tips to add, that's facebook.com/getfitguy. And until next time, I'm Ben Greenfield, the Get Fit Guy, asking you, what are you waiting for? Go get fit.